you. Well, it is my honor and it's such a privilege this morning to have Cristian Solan-Córdova among us and with us. Cristian works for MOTUS Theatre and also is one of the monologists for the Undocumerica and will present for us this morning a monologue. And I want to just say that I began a sermon series a couple weeks ago with the question of what would Jesus say as we talk about really important conversation that's happening in our world today. And certainly we all know as people of faith that the conversation around immigration is something that's ongoing and talked about culturally and needs to be talked about from a faith perspective. And so we are grateful to have you, and we are so thankful that you've chosen to be with us this morning. So we welcome you as he comes forward.
Goodness, thank y'all so much for having me here this morning. As Reverend Claire mentioned, my name is Cristian Solan-Córdova, and I'm an Undocumerica monologuist with MOTUS Theatre, where we create original theater to facilitate dialogue on some of the most critical issues of our time. We use the power of art to build alliances across diverse segments of our communities, and it's really great to be here with you this morning. Thank you all so much for welcoming MOTUS here with you today. I'm excited to share with you my story from MOTUS Theatre's Undocumerica project, so we can more deeply understand the impact of immigration policy and anti-immigration or anti-immigrant rhetoric on the lives of undocumented people like me. This monologue and many others were created in a MOTUS monologue workshop in collaboration with each storyteller and MOTUS's artistic director, Kirsten Wilson. We strengthen our spiritual well-being and build stronger communities when we listen and learn from experiences of people who rarely have the chance to share their story on our stages, in public, or in the media, right? And every time I perform my story at a faith community, I always come away with a renewed sense of passion, of energy for the work that we do. And, I will admit, I did not believe in God up until a few years ago. I grew up in a church that sought to invalidate and penalize people like me who are part of the LGBTQ community. But a couple years ago, I found God again, or he found me. Being part of your church here today, I definitely feel God's love. Some people say there is no one road to God, but I'm not sure what road I'm on, but one thing I do know is that being here, feeling welcomed, and being here in your sacred space with you, sharing space, I know that I'm on the right road. God led me to get more involved in immigrant rights when my family was at the crosshairs of dehumanizing lies and slander for political gain. And I feel like I needed to speak my truth to help people understand what's actually going on and look beyond the falsehoods and demonization. So thank you all so much for sharing some of those verses that I always hold dear. But especially right now, at this time in our nation's history, it's more important than ever to ground ourselves in truth and justice. So, without further ado, this is my Undocumerica monologue entitled The Meaning of Courage, and we're really lucky to have our beloved friend and violinist, Anthony Salvo, here with us, and he will be underscoring this monologue. I hope it will fill you with courage, just as my mom's journey taught me how to be courageous enough to share my story despite the intense political climate. When I was my baby sister's age, I didn't have any worries. And it's funny because my baby sister, the Nayi, well, she's an American citizen, so things should be easier for her. But they're not. And that's because all the people she loves the most in this whole entire world, my mom, my other sister Beba, and I, we're all undocumented. And when we are threatened, my baby sister is threatened. So my baby sister is still forced to bear burdens of political attacks on immigrants. I remember election night 2016. My mom and I were in complete shock, trying to absorb what had just happened to the country, trying to strategize about how to handle certain possibilities. I remember frantically Googling, what happens to a US citizen child if an undocumented parent is deported? My dad died young, so I needed to assure myself that if my mom were deported, that I could get custody of the Nai, who at the time was only 8. Then of course, what would happen to her if both Beba and I were deported? My mom and I, we totally lost track of time during our election night panic. So when hours later I came downstairs, I was surprised to find my baby sister, the Nai, wide awake, sitting in a corner by herself, crying, red-faced with puffy eyes. With my dad gone, I've always had to be the big brother, or rather father figure, since our mom was always working. I helped the Nai with her homework, we read each other bedtime stories, played board games. I tried to answer those unanswerable kinds of kid questions and comfort her when she was scared. But I wasn't used to trying to comfort anybody else when that night I needed so much comforting myself. I remember tilting her chin, glistening with streams of tears toward me, looking into those deep brown eyes and trying my best to give her soothing answers to the most difficult questions. And I just remember repeating over and over, don't cry. Baby, don't cry. It's gonna be okay, I promise. It's gonna be okay. Listen, why would you be deported? Do you even know what that word means? You shouldn't have to. But you listen to me. You are an American citizen and you will never be deported. And you're right, I'm not a citizen, but I've got DACA. They can't deport me. I know Mom doesn't, but Mom's gonna be okay. She's lived here for decades. She's not going anywhere. Baby, please don't cry. Please. I promise. Whatever happens, we'll be together, always. I'll be there to put Band-Aids on your scraped knees. I'll be there to help you with your school projects. Yes, we're gonna finish reading Harry Potter together. And I'll be by your side when you need help applying for college. I'll be there for you when you fall in love for your first time, when your heart is broken. And I'll walk you down the aisle one day, and it really doesn't matter where, as long as we're together. Yes, of course the puppy's coming with us if we go. Lulu's part of this family too, I'll have you know. Yeah, that's the dimply smile I like to see. It's gonna be okay. At least that's what I told her. I did my best to offer her what I wanted to hear, what I wanted to believe, both for her and our entire family. Because how do you talk to a child about being taken away from their parent or their siblings without terrorizing them, without stripping them of their innocence? And with each day of the past administration, the increased deportations of parents like my mom, the attempts to end the DACA program that protects me and my sister Beba from deportation, the willingness to end rules that limit how long children can be detained, and even threats to strip children like my baby sister, the Nai, of their citizenship. With all these mounting threats, it felt increasingly cruel for me to offer my baby sister what amounted to be a fairy tale, when in reality, she might need great strength to overcome great threats. So today, I offer you another story. And this story isn't gonna kiss it and make it all better, but I'm hoping it'll help us stay strong, regardless of any challenges that we might face. I was just 3 years old, and my sister Beba was just 1 when we crossed the border with our mom. We walked together with a group of people, maybe 10, 15, across the desert. We walked for hours and hours at night, and I remember we were out in the middle of nowhere, following some dim silver light in the distance. I imagined we followed it because it meant we were going the right way, some shining city. We finally got to a raised road lined with street lamps, and to avoid walking over the road that night and potentially being seen, we crossed through a drainage tunnel under a road. Mom had me walk through the tunnel in front of her. She crawled behind with my baby sister in her shawl. Beba and I, we were wearing those little kids' light-up shoes that everybody was going crazy over that year. My mom had saved up a lot of money to buy them for us because we were going to be seeing our dad after a year of him being in the US on his own, and she wanted us to look our best. And those shoes, they were actually super helpful in that drainage tunnel, helping to light the way for Mom and all the other people crawling on their hands and knees. But of course, the dead of night, in the middle of the desert, they were a dead giveaway. We were finally able to see the moonlight at the end of the tunnel and catch a whiff of fresh air. Then the coyotes urgently requested that my mom take off my shoes. "There's a border patrol car parked outside," he whispered. The drainage tunnel emptied out right next to a gas station where the border patrol car was parked. The officers were inside, we assumed, but we waited for a while, hoping they'd return to their car and drive away. But nobody was coming out, and for some reason, the coyotes grew impatient and abruptly told everybody to move. And in the chaos, everybody immediately scrambled, crawling behind tall grass on their hands and knees as the coyotes gave us voiceless commands, with their fingers on their lips and pointing to the ground. But the ground was covered in cactus thorns and pricklies, and I didn't have any shoes. So while everyone else crawled, my mom stood up, carrying both Beba and me in her arms, and she just started walking. And at first I thought she was giving up because, we would surely be seeing everybody else was still on the ground. But she stood up tall with a defiant pep in her step, as if she belonged right there where she stood. And that's when I realized she hadn't given up. She just had faith that walking quickly and quietly was her best strategy to protect us. She was resolved that somehow, somewhere, we would find a place to call home, somewhere where we could thrive. And I've never forgotten the look on my mom's face as she walked out into the darkness of an unknown country. That is the moment I first learned that the real meaning of courage is not to pretend to be immune from fear, but rather to calmly and steadily take action in spite of it. And our former president and his followers, they're still out there caricaturing my little 3-year-old self as a diseased toddler criminal murder rapist gang member in the making. They try to scare people who don't know any undocumented people like me into thinking that a mother carrying her children to safety is nothing less than an invasion. But Beba and I, we grew up beloved by our friends, by our neighbors, became strong members of our communities. We both went to college. I even became student body president in my university. I'm not part of some invading army fighting against America, but like many of you, I'm fighting for the American ideals I know we can live up to. Our former president, he's still trying to take away my baby sister's right to citizenship, but I remain hopeful that maybe the Nai or some other young lady in this wonderful place of worship this morning might one day be our future president and actually lead us to a future where we truly have liberty and justice for all of us. But that reality is going to take a lot of hard work, and not just on my part or on the part of the immigrant community, but on your part too. As Anne Frank once wrote in her famous diary, how wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you for holding space in your place of worship. We would love to come back anytime. We have other MOTUS monologues from immigrants, from people who are formerly incarcerated, and people who are transgender and non-binary. So If y'all would like to hear more, we'd love to come back and share more stories. And if you're interested in seeing more of our work, I left some of our flyers with our fall season in your community connection corner. So I would love to see some of y'all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.